Namaste. I am Gloria Grace Rand, and I've got a guest with us on the show today who I am excited to hear from. I met her recently, and I'm really excited to share with you, have her share with you, I should say, some of what she's involved in. But I'm going to tell you more about that in a minute. But first, I want to welcome Nancy Boyd to Live, Love, Engage.
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wow. I am, yeah, really intrigued by Nancy's work that she does. So, but I'm going to tell you a little bit. Her official bio, I'll share with you first. So, she is a multiple award-winning writer, healer, 2009 International Coach of the Year, and vision manifester. And when she's not busy creating elegant solutions to complex problems for her clients, she enjoys the beautiful natural world and plotting how to make the world shine brighter for everyone. I like that use of the word plotting there. Which actually, in a way, can also have a natural connotation as well. You know, when we've got a
Yes, it
plot of
does.
land, so it kind of works both ways. Um, which actually brings me to what I wanted to ask you about, because normally I ask our guests to sort of share with us, you know, why they do the work they do, and one of the things that intrigued me about you after we met was the fact that you do something called some work with flower essences. And I knew a little bit about them, but not a whole lot. And I would love it if you would share with our audience today what are flower essences, why are they important, and maybe why, and most of all, why you got interested in them.
Sure. Those are great questions, and there's a lot to cover, and there's a lot I could say about them, but let me start with how I got involved with them. And actually, I have been involved with them most of my life, off and on. There was
Mm.
something that I learned about probably in my 20s, and as a natural remedy, it was one of the things that I was attracted to, like, oh, let me try this and see what it is and how it works. And had a very nice response to it. And it wasn't until actually I had a health crisis at one point in my career. It was um, a situation where I had to stop doing whatever I had been doing previously because it interfered and I was not going to be able to continue that way. And during the time of my recovery, I started casting about, well, if I'm not going to do that, what will I do? And one of the things that emerged from that period was when I began to use, again, turn to flower essences to help me in my recovery, and also to get retrained as a coach, because that was something that I felt I could do no matter, even if I had some restrictions or limitations. It was something that was a potential pathway forward for me. And in that process, I got trained as a coach, and I also got trained and certified as a flower essence practitioner, because one of the things that happened as I began to improve and recover, people said, well, what are you doing? You're looking much better. And I started to tell them about this, my work with flower essences and experiences with them. And it occurred to me that other people would like to know more about it and how it can help them too. And so that drew me into work. And one thing along the way that I discovered, interestingly enough, is that not only do individual flowers work for different situations that you might encounter, but um, I discovered that I was really good at creating custom blends in working with people and animals and pets. And so that was where I found my niche, my sweet spot, if you will. So let me take a step back now and answer the question about what are flower essences. And I will say right up front that people often get them confused because the word essence confuses people. And they'll think about essential oils and the fragrance. And
Right.
that is aromatherapy, and that's another wonderful field. I do a little bit of work with that, but that's not really my in my wheelhouse, if you will, to do. Flower essences are liquid preparations. They're created from the energetic electrical properties carried in the petals of a plant, of a
Mm.
flower. And it's extracted by removing, with permission from the plant, removing the petal from the plant, placing it into a bowl of natural spring water, and let the sunlight, natural sunlight, infuse the electrical properties into the water. That's how they're created. Then humans or animals can take drops of that water, and you will get that electrical pattern introduced to your system. Now, why is this important? It sounds, oh, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah, exactly. But how does that help your
What does it
body?
mean?
Yeah.
What does it mean? Well, here's something that many people don't know, and it's not taught in medical school. So doctors and
Mm.
caregivers really don't understand about the principle of bioelectricity. Now, some scientists are going more deeply into this and making a lot of really cool discoveries about it. But the thing is, flower essences, to my knowledge currently, are the only way that you can reset your bioelectrical system. You can support it, and you can correct any problems with it, so that if you have anything interfere with your innate uh, energy system, we call it the bioelectrical system, how are you going to fix it? I mean, a lot of times, let's say you just walking through your house and you stub your toe and you go, oh man, you have a reaction to that and it hurts, and it gradually feels better, but you may not know to reset your trauma circuits when that happens, because you have in that moment become traumatized by the pain and the sudden surprise of how bad
Right.
it feels, And flower essence is something that could very quickly put you right back and restore those things. I like to call it, like, it's very similar to my way of thinking, that when something in your system becomes unplugged, the flower essences give you the tools your system needs to put that back where it belongs.
Wow.
So you can return and restore balance to your bioelectrical system using a a flower essence or combination of flower essences that address those particular areas.
Uh,
And how do we know to do that? Well, every plant, every flower has its own purpose and carries a biosignature, a bioelectrical signature in its system, in its petals, that will speak directly to something. Let me just make it real simple. Like the zinnia flower, which is a real common flower, right? The electrical properties that it carries is to help you remember how to be happy again.
hmm.
And you will find this flower often in a formula for depression, for example, along with maybe some other flowers,
Mm.
because it will help you plug back into whatever has come apart in your biological system, so that you've forgotten what it's like to be happy. Well, the zinnia will tell you. It just give you some of those drops, and you can very easily, uh, your system knows where to find the information again. It will inform you about what's going on and how to change that problem if it has become a problem for you. So this is the simple principles. It's like a way to reconnect your electrical system in a very healthy, natural way. And the beauty of them, apart from the fact that this is a miracle that you can have that without having to take pharmaceuticals and so forth for a lot of conditions and situations that uh, people are currently taking things for, uh, but they're 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 easy to take. They're pretty easy to remember. They're inexpensive, and in the most case, eventually those changes will become permanent.
Mm.
That your system will just remember the things that it had forgotten how to do once you get yourself reconnected properly, your bioelectrical system. Um, and they're safe and effective. They don't have any side effects. They don't interfere with any diets or protocols. And so there's no downside to them, you
Wow.
know?
So is this something that, let's say you have some sort of condition, and I'm just going to, um, let's say you've got high blood pressure, for instance. Is this something that you could take, that you would take for like a certain amount of time, as if, if you were taking, medication for it, they prescribe it for, you take, twice a day for, forever sometimes it seems like. But so is this something that you could that, and maybe this isn't a good example. Maybe you can give me a better example of something that, um, maybe some other type of ailment that it would help with. But is it something that you would take then, over a period of time? And as you say, you sort of let your body kind of calibrate to it, maybe?
Mm.
What do you think?
That is a really good question. And I do want to clarify too that um, flower essences can help with certain physical conditions, but what they do, remember, they work through your electrical system. So they're not going to be working on the chemicals and the muscles and the other ways that, say, herbs do, or any other medications that you'd be taking. And honestly, for people who have an underlying medical condition, such as high blood pressure, um, I would want to make sure that that is under care of a traditional healer of some kind, someone who really specializes in that or whatever. So they have the physical components covered as well. What we would look at is why is that out of balance, and
Mm-hmm.
try to see if we can reconnect some circuits that will support the body returning to its natural health. And I personally love the field of functional medicine now, because that's how they look at things. It's like, why is this happening? We're not just going to treat your blood pressure and give you some
Right.
medication you take forever. We want to
Yeah.
find out, excuse me, where did this um,
The underlying
begin?
cause of
Yeah,
it is something coming up. I'll let you take a sip of water. Yeah, yeah, so it's like more of looking at, yeah, the cause of why we're, as opposed to just treating the symptoms, which is something that, American medicine is really good at fixing symptoms, but they're not
right.
necessarily good at looking what caused it in the first place. So it sounds like this is a little bit better at kind of helping address that.
Yeah, you can begin to look at the whole system, but also uh, we're looking at the energy patterns of what has disrupted the
Mm,
energy in your system that makes it possible for your blood pressure to go out of balance.
mm,
And I will have to say that I don't have a formula that I would recommend for that particular cause, but I would recommend to someone, if someone comes to me for various reasons, um, that they go find a functional medicine doctor
mm,
or practitioner who can guide them towards uh, finding a permanent solution that gets them back to really good balance, really good health.
mm.
Um, in my experience, uh, I find that flower essences work best through your consciousness, things that it will help you with your behaviors, for example.
Oh,
My
okay.
favorite. And so you come to me and you tell me all these things that are going on. I say, well, how would you rather experience that? What kind of experience would you rather have instead of this? And from that, we can pretty easily find a flower group that will give you the information in your system, so you know what to do about that. And you can make conscious choices about, okay, I've been just feeling like a victim all the time. So how do I change that and shift to that?
Right.
And, look at all the reasons why that's going on. And it's sort of like, it's almost like therapy in a bottle, if you will. It's not really that, but
Yeah.
it helps you work through your own issues in a very conscious way, a very clear way, so that you get um, an answer to the problems that are most concerning to you,
Mm.
and can find your own way through in a way that makes sense to you, and it really feels good. So um, I don't know if that answers that question.
I think so. Mm, when you have clients coming to you that you then, recommend, let's say, flower essences for, um, do you find that there's some common areas that um, number one, I guess, that people are coming to you for, and that the flower essences seem to work best to help?
Yeah, there are certain general areas. Mostly people will come when there's a crisis of some kind. And it can be about relationships. It can be about it can be about some physical health issue. And at that time, we will want to make sure that they, like I said, that they have concurrent care from the appropriate caregiver, that
Right.
if they have a heart condition, you want a doctor, medical doctor working on that.
Yeah.
Flower essences can support um, heart health through the bioelectrical system that supports that part of your body. But you still need your doctor to monitor it and understand what all is going on with you,
Yeah.
so that you can have uh, that whole picture handled and put on a return path to wholeness and to health. So my job as a practitioner is to listen intently and offer some ways that you can experience whatever the problem is in a way that feels better to you and that leads you to a solution for it. And you were alluding to a period of time, and in my experience, it depends on how long you've had the situation.
Mm. Oh,
Uh,
okay.
if the longer you've had it, the longer it might take to put things back in order.
Gotcha.
Uh, Things that have just come up recently, you can handle maybe within a month,
Hmm.
just a very more or less short-term time. One thing that happened with my practice, I participated in a longitudinal study with the Flower Essence Society on the topic of depression.
Mm.
And each of the practitioners involved uh, invited people who had a diagnosis of depression, and we gave them some tests to see where the baseline is, where he's starting with this. I had 8 people in my study, my part of the study, and um, all of the 8 of them had satisfaction by the end of the series. Some of them, I think the longest person took about 8 months to come to resolution. And the shortest one was about 2.5 to 3 months.
Mm.
That was somebody with a fairly recent sort of situational depression kind of thing. There was only one person who felt that that depression didn't leave them.
Mm.
And that was because here's what happened for them. She discovered why she'd been depressed. And it was a situation where she could decide to change that, but she decided not to. And so she was conscious that if she stayed in that situation, she was probably still going to continue to have depression, but
Mm.
at least she knew what was going on and she
That's
could
true.
work with it in a
Yeah.
different way. Now, all the other people, there were, I think, 5 of them who were on antidepressants, and in cooperation with the people who were giving them the
Right.
medication, were able to taper off and not need to take them anymore. Uh,
Mm.
Overall, the study was very, very successful
Wow.
at helping people with the issue of depression in a natural way, and help them in many cases get off of the pharmaceuticals, which they didn't really want to be on anyway, and had a lot of side effects that they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So that's one example of how long does it take and how it works for a particular kind of condition there. Um, on the physical side of things, one of the recent formulas that I've developed, I don't have one of those bottles in front of me right now, but it's to support the recovery from long haul COVID.
Oh.
And we have managed through that formula to cover all of the symptoms of long haul COVID, except for the loss of smell and taste.
Mm.
And the thing about that was kind of acceptable to me, my way of thinking, is because as people recover from their symptoms, that seems to come back on its own. We
Mm.
haven't yet found any flowers that is going to do that for them. And that doesn't mean that we won't. Eventually, there might be some that surface, and we'll find out that yeah, we can add this too, and then we got a whole thing covered. But it's enough really to cover the most critical ones about um, foggy memory and
Mm.
yeah, foggy thinking and
Right.
uh, lots of energy. Uh, Sleep disturbances, your respiratory system, we want to really support that, and your cardiovascular system, we
Mm.
support that. So we're really, really happy about that
Yeah.
particular one. Right now, the way the world is, we're all going through 4 major um, experiences that are extremely traumatic for people.
Mm.
We've got the COVID situation that started in 2020, and that's ongoing, and we don't know when it's going to end because they don't see an end. It just keeps changing and hitting us with new variants that we got to do something with. And globally, we're not anywhere near where we ought to be to get it under control. So there's an ongoing stressor of how people are dealing with this. We have climate crises.
Right.
And, if people don't think there is one, then you have not been listening to the news and seeing what's going on. If
Yeah.
and you're not living in Florida, where
Right.
whole towns are getting wiped out
Yeah.
by hurricanes and so forth. And it's not just there, it's almost everywhere. There's no place that's really safe. Like right
True.
now, we've got raging wildfires in the part of the country where I live. And part of the reason I'm coughing and having a little trouble respiratory wise is because there's a lot of smoke in the air. We're not that close to them, but the whole area is affected by it. So
Sure.
you don't have to be in it to be affected by what's going on. We have a lot of economic unrest and uncertainty
Hmm.
because of these factors. There's a lot of political turmoil in the world, in our country and around the world. Are we going to, uh, how are we going to govern ourselves in a way that works for people and not have wars and other conflicts? So all of these things, whether or not it's happening directly to you, it does affect us
Yeah.
indirectly or whatever, and we can feel the energy of it. So forgive me again. Some of the formulas that I have are going to be really important for people to stabilize and just keep yourself so that you can function better during all of these times. One of them, a formula I've had for one, I'm going to show this bottle here. It's called Stress Busters.
Mm.
And this way before COVID. Like I've had developed this formula like about 20 years ago. And this is just for general stress, but it works for all kinds of stress and anxiety that people are feeling too. Have you have a deep breath and get centered again in yourself so that you feel comfortable dealing with whatever it is. And take away some of the edges of it to make you um, feel oppressed by it, I guess is the best way of putting it.
Right.
Um, Another formula that I just developed within the past few months is a resilience
Mm.
formula. So you can feel able to bounce back when there's been something major happen to you, and uh, figure out how to put the pieces back together again. Because we all are capable of doing it. Humans are very remarkable and very resourceful beings. And that's one of the beauties of flower essence, is how we can help. Because whatever you're feeling not as strong in some area, or
Right.
not sure if you can do something, they'll put you right. You'll get your electrical system set up so that you feel, I won't say you feel like a superhero, but you certainly feel like you're capable of tackling whatever is going on and approaching new pathways.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah. And
Another good formula, I'm going to show this one to you new, and this is called adapting to change. And boy, that's going to be part of my resilience formula, um, because we don't know what kind of changes we're going to be faced with, and we can't always choose what kind of change is coming along. We have things that we'd like to change, and we can decide to do that, but even if we do, you still have to adjust to it. Even good changes means that there are ripple effects of other things that get moved around in your life. So uh, those are some of the remedies that I've created to address certain specific things. I have a complete line that's just for animals and the challenges that animals go through, and the people in their lives, their families. Like a really good one for people who have taken in a rescued animal. I have a rescued animal formula, which helps that animal deal with and heal from whatever has happened to it before. We don't know
yeah.
always where it's come from, what kind of things happened in its life. And when you kind of support it, it can make it easier for it to learn what it needs to know to be happy in the new home, and to find out what are the rules here, and
Mhm.
how do you be part of this new pack or family, you know?
Exactly, yeah. And, and I think that's so good for, I mean, for what you're talking about, I mean, for helping people too, with becoming more resilient. And I think that is, I like that it is a way to be able to support, your innate capability, which you have, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's just life, kind of bounces you around a little bit, and so you may not feel as strong one day because of what's going on, but I like the idea of being able to have something like this that can, as you say, sort of kind of recalibrate yourself, kind of bring your energies back in line so that then you can say, okay, let's see if I can manage this a little bit better now. And I like that. I think that's a really great tool to be able to have in your tool chest, among all the other wonderful things that you can do. I mean, some of the things I always go to, some of my go-tos are things like meditation and
Sure.
journaling. And I think you can never have too many things, frankly,
Well,
because
yeah,
because
like
there's
whatever
because sometimes meditation doesn't work for me. It's like, it's not doing it for me today. So, then I could have the option of say, okay, well, maybe I could try flower essences for a couple days and see if that would help. What do you think about something like that? As incorporating it in, like that as like another tool for people. What do you think?
I think it's absolutely correct. You're really onto something, and I find it to be like a complementary or additional tool that people can use in their lives, in addition to whatever else they're doing. I often say, when you're taking flower essences for a particular reason, it really helps to keep a journal, because I'll tell you a
Mhm.
funny thing that happened to me. One of my early people that I first worked with came to me, and she was really puzzled because she was experiencing a lot of sadness, and she
Mhm.
didn't understand why. So she said, there's nothing really going on in my life that I should be sad. So I
Hmm.
don't understand why I'm sad. Can you give me some flowers for that? And I did. And I said, like I do with everybody, I said, call me in 2 weeks. I want to hear your progress, and any questions that you have, you can call me anytime before that. But
Right.
2 weeks is about the time it takes for people to notice
Hmm.
consciously what's going on. So she called me in 2 weeks, and she was telling me all this stuff. And I says, well, how is that sadness? And she got really kind of upset. And she says, sadness? What sadness? I'm not sad. And I started laughing. I said, okay, let me read the intake form here, why you came to me and why you were taking flower essences. And she says, oh, I totally forgot about that. Do you think it was the flowers? And I said, well, we do anything else? And she said, no, not really. So she says, well, that must have really worked, didn't it? And I said, I think it did. So
I love
that's
that.
really that's really a common experience, that it can be so subtle
Mm.
that you might not notice. And I do encourage people to take a journal for
Yeah.
that reason, so they can monitor kind of the subtle changes of day to day. Like, well, today I'm not quite so down. I'm
Hmm.
feeling maybe a little hopeful or something. And
Yeah.
just whatever it is for you, because every
Right.
person will be a little bit different. I can't predict when I give someone a formula how long it's going to take. All I know is, if they told me the truth about what they're dealing with, and I've got them the flowers that address that, they're going to, at some point, that's going to click.
Mm.
Their systems are going to get what they need, and they can move with it. So, and the only question I don't know is how long that's going to take
Yeah.
for any one person.
And that
So,
and that makes sense because everybody is different. We're all made up differently. We've had different experiences. Our bodies are, different. And so it makes sense that it would be something that you can't predict. And frankly, that's even with conventional medicine.
oh
They
yeah,
can't they
really,
can't necessarily predict that, yes, this will cure you. They, you know, shoot, just with an antibiotic, they recommend that you take it for, at least 7 to 10 days because it is going to take time to get in your system and
yeah.
help the change. So it makes sense that this isn't any different. Um, what are you what are you curious about in the work that you do?
I am curious about the ways in which we change enough that we get better and better at improving our consciousness. Because in my work in the world, I serve and support people who are working on creating the kind of world that no one needs to recover from.
Mm.
As flower essence practitioner, in a way, I'm in business to put myself out of business. I want people to heal. I don't want you not to need these things,
Right.
and only take them for what you need, and then you're done with them, and you're on your way, and you're a happy, productive person again. And um, so I'm really curious of where will the turning point come in the world and in ourselves, in our consciousness, of where we actually know that we are creating that kind of world.
Mm.
That's what I'm really curious about and working towards, really.
I like that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I'm curious about that as well. Because um I and I love that there are so many people out there like yourself who are doing different things, who are helping people in different ways and really helping us to rely more on our natural healing properties that we all have, and they just need some like a kickstart sometime, I guess,
Sometimes,
or something,
right?
a
A
little
reboot.
energy boost. Yeah, yeah,
Yep, yep.
exactly. Um, is well, actually, let me ask you this: is if someone wants to be able to use flower essences to help themselves, have is there any way that they could get it wrong?
Well, I'll tell you what happens. If they choose a flower that doesn't particularly apply to them, or the wrong flower,
Mm,
and I would tend to think that's kind of rare, but if you should, it just does nothing. It's like has a nil effect.
mm,
And here's a good example that I tell people. Like sometimes I give a flower essence formula for a family that has multiple animals in it, but I'm only giving it for this one dog who has a behavior problem. Maybe it's snipping at the other animals or protecting its food or something like that. So, but we give it in the water bowl, and everybody drinks from the same water bowl. So what happens is those other animals are getting those same formula, but they don't need it. So nothing happens with them. It's just the one that needs it is going like, oh, maybe I don't really need to bite that guy's ear, you know. Maybe I could let him go this time. But the other animals they don't even notice anything because it's not for them. It's
mm.
not their electrical system. Those circuits are already connected. They don't need it. It's sort of like water.
I like that.
It
I,
pays no attention.
I might have to look into doing this for my cats. Because I know I'm sure it will probably not bother, but I would like to have the other one chill out a little bit. She's a sweetie, and um she doesn't like him very much. It's like
Oh
he'll just
yeah.
walk by and she starts growling at him. But then there'll be other times where they'll be sitting next to each other, just as calm as can be, and she doesn't mind. So it's
Yeah.
very it's hit or miss with her, but yeah.
But
I,
we have a formula that helps animals get along with each other. So they might
I'll look into
see how
that.
that works for them.
Yeah. I think so.
Right.
um Is there anything else I should have asked you about that I didn't, that you think would be useful for our audience to learn about, to know about?
I
Um,
think that there's so many things. I mean, as I said before, I could probably
yeah.
talk about this for days. I love the world of the natural world of flowers and the beautiful energetic support they give us. The only thing that I would say that I would like to let people know is that they can find out more at my website, and there, if they want to have something they can take with them and study at their leisure. I've written a book called Dances with Flowers, and it's all about how flower essences work, what you do with them, and um, how to work with them in your own life and for your family. And also, there on that same site, you can learn a lot of that information, and you'll see the catalog of products that I have already created. Or if you would like me to work with you to develop a custom blend for a particular situation, you looked through the list and you didn't see your particular thing there, we
Mm.
can talk about it and see what we can create for you. And also, I do have recently started doing some configurations for families.
Mm.
So that's been really interesting,
Mm.
working not just with one individual, but a group, small group of people.
Oh,
So
wow.
that is www.brightwings.com/ dances with flowers. And those are separated by hyphens,
Okay.
dances dash with dash flowers.
All right.
And on that page, you can find a wealth of information, maybe more than you ever wanted to know. But you can also download that free book and
All
learn
right.
more about
Excellent.
our wonderful world here.
Very good. Well, I'll be sure to have all of that information in the show notes. So if you're listening somewhere and you don't have a pen handy, don't worry about it. Just come
Come
back
back to the show notes.
later.
Thank you so much for that, too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So just go to liveloveengagepodcast.com and search for Nancy's episode, and you will be able to get all that information. So,
Great.
yeah, well, this was an education for me, and I certainly appreciate it. I've learned more about it today, and I
Well,
appreciate.
may I ask you,
Oh,
what
yes.
was what was the most fun thing you learned today?
What was the most fun thing I learned today? Ooh, that's a good question. Well, I think that I like hearing about how actually about how you know what I liked? I liked your story about the woman who forgot that she was sad, frankly. I think that was so cool because that it was such a because it's cool that it's such a subtle
Mhm.
way of being able to help you to um, be able to shift, how you're feeling, to shift your emotions, to shift what you're doing in the world. So, yeah, I think that's what I liked the most. So, yeah.
Cool.
So good story. See, stories are always important. If you're out there listening, if you're an entrepreneur and you want to do speaking, remember stories. They're really powerful. Um, they get the message across. So thank you so much for being with us today, Nancy. I really appreciate it, and I wish you continued success with the work that you're doing in the world.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, and thank you for bringing flower essences to the world of all your listeners. I really appreciate that too.
Mm. And I also want to just thank all of you for listening and for being supporters of the program and for listening to us and leaving wonderful, lovely reviews on Apple Podcasts. I appreciate that, and I'll encourage you also if you wanted to ever watch this interview, you can also go to my YouTube channel, Gloria Grace Rand, and you will look for the Live, Love, Engage channel or her playlist. Yeah, that's what they call it, playlist. And you'll be able to see all of our past episodes there as well. And so I encourage you to subscribe there too. And I think that's all I need to say promo wise. So until next time, as always, I encourage you to go out and live fully, love deeply, and engage authentically. Take care.